And there we are. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Leveling Up tonight. I'm Rithkin from Ontier, and tonight I'm very happy to have Dame Elizabeth Alice from the Milled Realm, and she's going to be teaching us how to make inexpensive period looking jewelry. Okay, cool. So, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know the time change is a little weird for you, and you pushed it back for me because I just flew back from Montana today, so I appreciate that.
I'm happy to help. It just means that, we probably will wrap up in the hour so that I can wind down and get ready for bed.
All right, cool.
So, as was introduced, I am Elizabeth, and I do find it challenging to do hands on things virtually. So, the way I've designed the class today is I'm going to talk about how to get started doing inexpensive jewelry, which I have experience with because I joined the SCA as a graduate student. So I had very little money and I got into jewelry because it was something I could do inexpensively. And then I've provided a link that they'll send out to you that is links to specific handouts that have, in many cases, step by step instructions to really let you say, oh, I want to try to make X, and this is how I can do it. So, first of all, why jewelry? Um, as I'm sure you've discussed, because this is called leveling up, you know, an outfit looks more complete with accessories. And one of the easiest accessories that I found to make um, as a lady was jewelry. There is men's jewelry, and there are aspects of jewelry in here that are for men. But I have to admit, I've got more things that I know how to do for people who present as women. So, but there's links you can see in my handouts to making a medieval brooch that is unisex. Wire rings are unisex. Men and women in different periods wore earrings. Men and women wore necklaces. So, yes, women, we get a little more that we can go wild on, but there's options for everyone. So, like I said, I got into this because I joined as a poor graduate student and didn't have a lot of money. So I went over to my local craft store and I think I bought my initial things for under 20 bucks. So that's really what I'm going for. So I'm going to cover the big question, which is how do you decide what to make? And this is something that you'll end up going out and doing on your own because my biggest recommendation is look at lots and lots of pictures of what you're interested in creating. So if you're interested in Norse, there's a lot of artifacts that have been found. So you can go out and see what the glass beads look like and see what styles of glass beads are available, would have been used and see what compares to modern. If you're interested in late period, there are a lot of portrait paintings that you can look at to see how the jewelry looked. So, whatever particular things you're interested in, go look at pictures. Look at lots of them. Look at more than you think you possibly need to, because what you're going to do is you're going to teach yourself how to recognize the right aesthetic so that when you look at something, you go, oh, that looks right. Because the other handout, in addition to the instructionals that I put in to that folder I shared, is my thrifting for SCA jewelry. Because if you can't make it, maybe you can find it. And I have thrifted tons of bits and pieces over the years. Go to estate sales, go to garage sales, go to yard sales, but you'll only recognize the things that'll work if you've done that training of your brain to say, hey, this looks like, a 15th century or 16th century cross. I've seen beads that are shaped just like this that they found in digs. These are the major colors I know they had. And look, this bag of beads right here has those colors. So the thing I can't teach you without getting much more specific is the looking at all the pictures and taking all the classes you can. Um, The fun thing I learned a long time ago about looking at specific. English is my first language. Looking in specific things is when you're looking at paintings or sketches or artifacts with someone, you will see something else than what they do. The story I tell is Mistress Drea de Pellegrini, who is known for her garb. Sorry about the fuzzy teaching assistant.
We love fuzzy teaching assistants.
This is Shotzi, Livy maybe by later. She was looking at a painting for Flemish working women's garb. She showed it to a cook. The cook said, "Oh my gosh, purple carrots." So you're going to look at things differently once you know you're looking for jewelry. And you may go to a class that is, talking about just general concepts of archaeology or something. But if they have pictures in that class that show archaeological finds that are jewelry, you'll get something out of it. So there is my spiel, and I'm a big, excited, love to share things. The other thing is play to your strengths. So if you do not have good fine motor skills, you're not going to want to start with something that's quite as tiny and intricate as if you do. I will not show you any pictures of making the word just went right out of my head. The fleefers, where they would have the fleefers with an animal head with jeweled eyes and everything. I'm not going to show you any pictures of those because I can't do it. But I had a friend move in the area who already knew how to work with clay and Fimo, and she replicated a fleefer using the skills she already had out of gold Fimo and stuck gems in it and everything. From a couple feet away, it looked exactly right. So start with the things that you're most comfortable with. If that's just stringing beads, that's okay. Most of the beaded jewelry from period is really pretty simple. If you can put a bead on a string, you can make a lot of it. And even there's some Roman styles that have wire, but from 5 feet away, you can't tell if that's wire or if it's a metal spacer bead. Worry about what it looks like when somebody's looking at you, from 5 feet away. Does it look right? Does it look like the picture? Then you're doing okay. I tell people this in lots of classes that I teach about jewelry. If you're not entering this in competition where you're asking to be judged on your authenticity, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Make things that look right from a couple feet away. Don't fuss, because remember, faking it is period. I have a recipe for making fake pearls. So people couldn't afford pearls and they went, well, if I mash this stuff up and I mash up some shells and then I coat it with this thing, then it'll look like a pearl. So you can't afford, real stones, but you can afford glass that looks like stones. That's okay. That's what they did too. Start where you are. The nice thing about jewelry and beads is, for the most part, it's reusable. The not reusable materials are cheap, like wire. Excuse me, I'm going to adjust to my seat a little. So you make this necklace, you wear it for 3 years. You can finally upgrade to better findings. Crash from the cat. Oops. Better findings in between the beads. Great, you cut the wire, you restring. Low impact. It's not a major investment. So when we're talking about leveling up with jewelry, it's something you can do over time. You make it, you go, I don't really like how this looked once I was actually wearing it, or it needed to be a little shorter or longer. Great, with jewelry, you can do that. it's not expensive to get going in. So don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Start where you're comfortable. So what I am going to talk about in more specifics, and we'll see how the images look, is I'm going to tell you about my basic toolkit that I started when I started making jewelry. So I'm going to talk about tools. I'm going to hold them up. I'm going to describe them. When I started, I really only had 2 sets of pliers and a wire cutter. So I'm going to talk about the wire cutter first. This is not a very complicated piece. This is the most expensive of these 3 tools I'm going to show you. The important thing when you're going to cut wire is that you want to look for a set of pliers that's going to cut it off flat so you don't stab yourself. Because most of your cheaper cutters are going to cut off at an angle, and you're going to give yourself a point. Sure, you can file it down, but it's way easier if you're starting out with cutting off at a flat. So, I mean, I think, like I said, these are the most expensive. I think I got them for $12. The other thing you'll learn if you get into jewelry is look for the coupons. Look for the sales. Wait until it goes on sale. But
if somebody wants to, invest in some $12 wire cutters, where would you suggest they look?
I got these at Michael's, and I've gotten other pairs at a craft store that's unfortunately defunct. They will be at the stores. Usually they'll be called cutters or nippers. If it says on the packaging that they cut flush, that's good. Otherwise, you can look very closely at the actual cut that you're going to get and see whether it's going to cut flat or cut angled. These are the one thing that I would actually get from the craft store for sure. The next 2, you can be more flexible. But yeah, these are the ones that are worth investing in, especially if you're going to make something like rings, which is one of the wire things I got started in. Try not to stab yourself with the wire all the time. So your nippers. The next thing I got is these are round nose needle nose pliers. These are particularly slender. I like them. Sometimes you will see these as rosary pliers. Either way, what you're looking for is a round on both sides, so they're nice and round, that tapers slowly down, but never goes all the way to a point. You don't need it to go all the way to a point. These are what you're going to do to make loops. They also double when you're on a budget. When you're not making loops with them, they can hold the other end of the wire, or you can use it to hold when you twist. But you need these if you're going to make earrings, if you're going to make anything where you need to make a small loop. In terms of things like handles, I don't know if you can see, these are kind of shiny because they're glittery. If you get an opportunity before you buy to try out some other people's handles, they sell ones with smoother handles. They sell some that are more rubbery. If you are someone who has some sort of joint or hand issue, they do sell ones that are a little more expensive, but they're considered ergonomic. So they're designed to be more comfortable. It's about what works in your hand. I use the slims because I have smaller, stubbier hands, and I like how they feel. And the third one is some bent nose. So you can see that these come up into a point. These are a holding and twisting implement. They also sell straight ones that are called chain nose. Yeah, eventually you'll get both, but you really only need one to get started. And this is what I meant by you make these rosary pliers double as a holder and you manipulate with this. That's saving you from investing in a pair of chain nose pliers. The bent nose is nice because sometimes if you're trying to get into an awkward space, not needing to go straight on is easier. Now for the bent nose especially, you can find these at places like Harbor Freight. You can get inexpensive bent nose pliers because they're not just a jewelry tool. They're something that people use for other kinds of work. So it's pretty easy to find yourself some bent nose. But again, make sure you like the handles. I have an entire drawer of tools because I teach. And what I found is sometimes the ones that are meant for, in more manly professions, they're a rougher thing on the handle, and I don't like the way it feels in my hands. They're probably not holding them in their hands for nearly as long as I am when I'm working on, rings to occupy myself through court. So, and yes, I have actually timed courts by how many rings I can make. I had a queen who saw me making rings in like her very first court, and she said something to me about them. And so I would update her. I'd be like, this was a 30 ring court. This was only a 12 ring court. And then I would donate whatever rings I made in the court to Largesse for her with the update on this is how many rings this court was long. So like I said, those are the 3 plier type implements. The other thing I carry with me is scissors. If you need to open a package, cut a string of beads, just a little pair of scissors. I absconded with sewing scissors from one of my kits, and now I can never find them when I need to cut anything that isn't jewelry. And those can be, as long as they're not the, only safe to cut paper scissors, doesn't matter where you get those. You probably want a ruler or some other kind of measuring tool. Doesn't matter what kind it is. It just helps, especially when you're learning like to space things, or you want to check how long you're making something because maybe it's not for you. Maybe you're stringing it for a friend. You want a ruler, but you can get a ruler anywhere. You need something to keep the beads from sliding around when you're working with them. If you want to be fancy and combine your ruler and other things, you can get a bead board. And a bead board will actually have channels where you can lay out the beads to see what they'll look like. And it'll have measurements on it so you can see what it looks like. I'm
Those
terrible
are
at that.
relatively inexpensive too.
They're inexpensive. Unfortunately, if you have Destructo-Cat, as I do, they're a lot of times kind of flimsy.
Yes.
So they get squished. You know what'll keep your beads from rolling around? Terry cloth.
Oh.
Towels are actually really helpful because the pile is just long enough that the beads don't go anywhere. So I have been known just to put a towel or some other piece of fabric down and work on that. I also do the shortcut of once you learn your designs and you don't need to lay them out necessarily to see what it's going to look like, I will string right off the strand the beads came on because I'm less likely to lose things. So if you don't need to lay it out, you can sit there just with your strands of beads on your towel and pick things up. But yeah, bead boards are not expensive. The other thing you'll need is something to carry everything in. Now, especially if you're getting into doing a lot of beading and doing a lot of glass, like if you're doing maybe early period, make sure your container is actually strong enough to handle the weight of your materials. I have destroyed more toolboxes than anyone else I know. One of my favorite carrying cases IKEA had a simple wooden toolbox. So from a couple feet away, it fakes as looking really period. It's sturdy. I can put all my materials inside it and my tools and throw a piece of fabric over it when I'm not using it. But you'll need something to contain everything. And that includes, once you cut a string of beads, you need to make sure you have somewhere to put those. So whether you're carrying around little bags, I have been, some things will come in little tubes. So some things will come in tubes. You can also, guess what the cat knocked away? You can also buy fairly inexpensively tubes to store beads in. I've been reorganizing my bead collection because it's insanely large, and I've ordered a lot of tubes off of Amazon recently, because then I can say, I want to work on this today, throw these tubes into the bag. And if you're more consistent, they actually have things out there that are just a container to hold your tubes. I use stacking plasticware to store my beads at home, but you'll need something that you can take with you to events, that the handle isn't going to go and crack. And that is why you have to be careful if you want to carry baskets. You want to limit how much you're actually carrying with you around the event, because it puts a lot of strain on a basket if you're carrying too much. Ask me how I know. I break a lot of stuff. It's been a learning experience. Another thing that can help with that, though, and something I actually do because I have so many beads, is I get just the simple plastic containers. Like I will have one here. So you can see it has little channels in it, and it has removable plastic pieces so I can make them different sizes to get what I want. I will preset up projects. So I will pull just the beads that I want to make into a necklace. This little channel will have, I've decided I want to make earrings with these. So I'll put the ear wires and the wires in there and all the beads I want to use. And then I just have a project container. So I'm not carting my beads everywhere, and I'm not dropping them everywhere. Yeah. So finding a container that works for you, that can handle the weight, and that you can easily work in. I get more jewelry done in court than anywhere else. So I get less done now that I have to jump up and go to the front more often as a peer. But, you just have something that you can take and have on your lap. And people do handwork in court all the time. It's familiar. So I have found that jewelry making is a really good hobby for something like that, especially if you're a person who doesn't sit still well. Now, the one additional thing, because I do have the instructions for wire rings, and they're a pretty easy thing to get going on. In addition to my tutorial, you can find 50 YouTube videos on how to make wire rings that'll look good for the SCA. Because from 5 feet away, I can't tell if that ring on your finger that has a pearl is really a set ring or if it's one you made out of wire. So you can make wire beads. The one additional investment is a ring mandrel. Now you can get these made out of stainless steel and it looks like you have a weapon, but you don't need that if you're just making wire rings. This is plastic. And you can get them for under $5 at most craft stores. You don't need metal. You're not using a hammer yet. That's advanced. They don't let me have hammers most of the time either. And if you don't irresponsibly break it, a lot of them come with a little loop on this end so that you actually can attach it. So this is something I include because it is something that a lot of people will want to use, because getting into making rings is a pretty popular entryway into making wire jewelry. Plus, rings are a great largesse item. They're a great gift item, because there's nothing cooler than, you know, the queen coming up to you and complimenting you and taking the ring off her finger to hand it to you. When I became a Pelican, I made a bunch of special rings. I got sterling silver wire and I got carnelian beads. So I made little blood drop rings that I could give to people. So a ring mandrel is a thing you do not need to start, but if you want to get into rings, it will be helpful. Beyond those basic tools, so nippers, needle nose round, bent nose, some sort of measuring ruler, something to work on, and something to carry your stuff in. Any other tools you buy them because you find out they work for you. You know, basically invest wisely. You know, you might, if you get into, say, Roman jewelry, where you'll see there's sometimes little fancy links made of wire, then you might want to invest in a wire jig where you can set up a little design with pins and then you just run your wire around it to make it. But don't do that until you decide, yeah, I really want to get into this. You may decide that, hey, I don't like the bent nose as much. I really like the chain nose. Go buy the chain nose. So, you know, basically expand into what you need. You know, one of the instruction sheets that you'll see if you go into my folder is cold setting gemstones. There are additional tools for that. You can pick those up when you decide you want to play with setting cabochons. The other thing with shopping, and this will go for beads, in addition to tools, is find your other jewelry people. Find the other people who want to do this. When I place an order to Fire Mountain Gems, I don't just place my order. I will put an email out and I'll say, hey, I'm going to order, who wants to go in with it? Because I'll probably hit the highest quantity discount. So other people who just need a couple of things can jump on and take advantage of the quality discount, of the quantity discounting. Find your other people because they'll tell you, oh, hey, you know, I managed to find these findings that I found on Etsy, and here's the shop where I got them. Right now, when I make laurel earrings, there's one shop in England that makes little laurel wreath posts with the loop hanging down. Yeah, so you can share that knowledge. You don't have to do this alone. It's much more fun if you don't do it alone. You save money by combining. Bead swapping. I've sponsored bead swaps where, okay, so you bought this bag of beads because you needed to make a necklace. But now the necklace is done. You don't want to use these beads for anything else, but you have another half a bag. So I have sponsored bead swaps where you just bring what you have and see if you can work out and you can swap with someone else. You look like you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to ask if there's a group on Facebook for jewelry making that you would suggest somebody go to.
There should be, but I don't really think there is.
Okay.
There are there are some groups that kind of get together at certain events and look for the events that are focused. Unfortunately, we are so geographically far apart that we wouldn't share them. But I'm in the middle. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. There is an East Kingdom Metalsmiths Guild that does an event that rotates around. It's not always convenient to me, but when they put it in West Virginia, like they did several years ago, then it's close enough I can go. I did splurge and I went to the Known World Metal and Glass Symposium when it was in Minneapolis a couple of years ago. So keep an eye out for where people will be doing what you're interested in. And the nice thing is we've just been virtual for over a year. There have been metal and glass events held online. So you can go find those classes because a lot of them are still going to be up, and find those people, because we like to geek out just as much as everyone else to find the people who are doing things. And actually one of the recommendations that I was going to make, so I'll just go into it, is find a community. You don't have to do the same things, but if you find that, well, here's the guy who casts pewter, and there's another guy who casts bronze, and there's a person over here who does enameling, and there's a person over here that does wire work, there are still things you can share and you can learn from one another.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And somebody in the comments just shared a Facebook group, a SCA Metalworking and Jewelers group, unofficial discussion. So
good. I will be joining that then, because I don't think I'm in that one yet.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much. The other thing I've found is the other place to hang out in is like cultural, SCA cultural groups. If there's a particular area of the world you're interested in, jewelry will come up in the process of talking about garb and everything. So pay attention to that. Like I'm part of SCA India, even though I'm not really all that knowledgeable, but the images that come up for garb help me for jewelry. The other thing to look for with communities, and I only thought of this because I did it this morning, is look for museum photos. So I'm spoiled. I live by the Cleveland Museum of Art, which is one of the top 10 in the country. So I went to the museum yesterday and I took a bunch of photos and I uploaded them. So you can find pictures of things that maybe the museum doesn't have all the angles or they don't have the money to have it up online. There are people in the SCA who I have followed for their photographs and later met them in person and had to try to figure out how not to sound like a creepy stalker person, but say, hey, you take the best photos in museums. I really appreciate them. And for certain interest groups, even though you're far away, you'll travel further if it's something that you really want to do, like me making the splurge to go to Minneapolis. Most people in the SCA who are into an art are looking for an excuse to talk about it where people don't pay them to stop talking. So if you go over to them and say, hey, I'm really interested and I want to learn about this, you will not have a problem getting most of them to talk to you at some point. They might say, not now, I don't have 3 hours, but they'll want to come and join you and learn what you're learning. The other thing is, if you want to be a part of that community that does jewelry, then when you learn something, you need to teach it. You go out, you learn, and then you bring it back. And yeah, 90% of the people who you teach to make wire rings aren't going to then go into a full-blown wire ring obsession, but some of them will. And the rest of them will at least have a little bit of knowledge and appreciation and understanding. And when someone says, "Ooh, you know how to do that?" they'll say, "Well, I do. But Elizabeth over here is really into jewelry and you should talk to her." So one of the most essential things is share what you learn, because in addition to it's just part of the community, you will find people who are more skilled at different things. Yeah. And maybe keep a list of the things you want to learn. So when someone arrives in the area, you're like, "Hi. So I understand you do," for example, one of the things I'm working on is, "I understand you do enameling. I would really like to learn how to enamel." Excuse me for a moment.
Enameling is the coolest.
Oh, so some other pointers, speaking of the coolest. The other thing is take lots of pictures of your work, even if it's just for you, because you will see your own progress over time. It'll make you feel way better when you're feeling down, because you'll be like, "Well, yeah, I didn't love this necklace, but look at how much better I am." And, people will see me, I'll be sitting in court and I'll be making rings and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so good at that. How are you so good at that?" Well, because I've made literally thousands. You're not going to get this immediately. No skill is going to come that easy, but you're going to get it. A lot of the jewelry stuff is very simple, and you will get better at it as you practice. So like I said, a lot of the handouts that I put in the linked folder actually have step-by-step directions. And then when you level up later, after you've made a couple thousand rings, you're going to come across a new ring in a Viking find, and you're going to start to look at the ring and be able to go, "Well, this wire goes here, and then it loops here," because then the next step is you'll start to be able to say, "I have enough different things I've made that I think I can make that even though I don't have instructions." And again, this is what's good about jewelry. You don't start out in the sterling silver. You start out in the copper wire. And you go, "Well, that doesn't look anything like it. We'll just put that one aside in the trash." And you try again. Because let me tell you, you will mess up. It's just part of life. The other thing is, you will have a ring that you have made 1,000 times, and you'll go to make it, and you're like, "Meh, the wire didn't want to cooperate." I will also tell you, the artifacts aren't perfect. Yeah, I make this spiral ring. It's really fun. It's great because it's good for Roman. It's good for Anglo-Saxon. It's good for Norse. Let me tell you, those artifacts are not perfect. Their spirals are uneven. There's more wire on this side than there is on this side, because human beings made it with their hands, and we're fallible. Not to mention, it gives it a lot more character. So don't be afraid of failure. Sometimes failure ends up looking really cool, or you figure out that, oh, they got that ring because they screwed up trying to make this one. But they liked how it looked, so then they just pretended they meant to do that. So again, just to hit some of the points that I've already gone over, look at lots and lots of pictures. figure out what you're really interested in. And even if the answer is you're like me and you're interested in whatever you can make new and fun jewelry for. Because there is nothing wrong with making the garb to go with the jewelry you already made. That is perfectly normal behavior. That jewelry will up your game. Even if the garb isn't quite right, adding the right jewelry will make it look more right. Because I'll tell you, I'm not a seamstress. I'm a terrible seamstress. Sewing machines break when I even look at them or talk about them. But some well-placed jewelry hides those sins. People don't notice. But look at what you're interested in. Look at lots of pictures, train your eyes, and then figure out what you want to try first. Whether that's, I want to go thrifting and look for things and not try making anything yet. Whether that's, I want to try wire rings or I want to try stringing beads. Find those things to play with. And be brave. Remember that faking it is 100% period. So don't break the bank. Buy what you can afford. Glass-based pearls, fine. Even those plasticky pearls, as long as the sheen isn't chipping off of them, nobody's going to know from a couple feet away. Find what you like. And remember, it's an experiment. Your materials aren't expensive. You can remake, you can take apart, because trust me, they did that, because there's some artifacts that I wish still existed, but I can tell they took them apart and made them into other jewelry. Excuse me. Start with just the simple tools until you figure out what you need. You don't need to go out and spend a bunch of money. Get the simple basic tools and then expand your tools based on what you're trying to do. And make sure the tools are comfortable. You can give yourself calluses and blisters if you're spending too much time during the day working with tools that aren't comfortable for you. You can level up at different times. You start out with this kind, with the less expensive pliers, and then you go, I really like doing this style of jewelry, and it means I'm holding these pliers for 2 hours at a time. I think I want a better handle. That's a good way to get going. Like I said, tips for shopping, go to the craft store for what you absolutely need to get there. But otherwise, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Look for your coupons. Look for your opportunities at, say, quantity discounting. There's a place in the Cleveland area, and you might have one like it. They're a paper store, but they also buy out craft lots. So I go there every couple of months just to dig around in the room of random craft stuff. And sometimes I find nothing, and sometimes I find fantastic things. Take all the classes you can. Take advantage of all the learning opportunities you can, and then teach. When you learn how to do something, share it with other people, because you'll all get to grow together. It's way more fun that way. So are there any other questions that anybody has?
I don't see any other questions.
I've been talking for 45 minutes. It doesn't feel like it.
I know. It goes fast. It really does.
And try out the stuff that's in my handouts. If you have problems with any of them, my email's on all of them. The problem is not getting me to talk about jewelry. It's getting me to stop talking about jewelry.
And if you came into this late, all of her handouts are in a link that I shared at the very beginning. So just scroll up in the comments.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'll get to see any of you in person at any point, but at least we can talk online. Though someday.
Yes.
My mother's actually out there right now.
Really?
Yeah, because my cousin lives in Ontier technically.
Um, well, is that it? Or?
That is what I had prepared
Oh, great.
since an hour.
No, I think that's great. I really appreciate it. I think I am going to try the rings because I have wanted to figure out something to do for largesse that isn't really time intensive. Be- because and I don't have to pay like $1 billion to have someone strike coins for me or something.
Yeah.
So I think that might be something that I could figure out, and it wouldn't be all that expensive once I get going.
The other largesse trick I've learned with the ring mandrel. So the nice thing is the mandrel goes all the way up, in this case, to size 15. So when I'm making largesse and I don't know who it'll go to, I will make a ring at the small size and then just go up a size, go up a size, go up a size, so that I have a nice range of rings by the time I'm done.
Very cool. Do we have pictures? I can't access the handout on my phone.
Ooh. Oh, it's probably because it's just the link.
Okay.
If when they get home they're still not able to get into the link, basically I can provide my email and I can send anything anybody wants out of there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it, and I'm probably going to go check out this SCA metalworking group as well. I have to tell you that I made a pair of Etruscan outfits just because I loved Etruscan jewelry and I wanted to wear it. And so I made outfits so that we could wear it. And I totally thrift shopped it because, there's a whole bunch of Etruscan revival stuff. But so that's a thing.
People, oh, yeah. So yeah, people make garb based on the jewelry, and I cannot tell you how much fun the thrift shopping portion is, because if you can combine both the making and the thrift shopping, you can do incredible things.
Really incredible things. Well, thank you so much.
You're
if
welcome.
anybody has questions, you could just pop them in the comments again. And I'm not going to give your real name, but if you can't reach your handout, is your email in the handout?
Yes, my email is in all of those. You can also find me on the Mid-Realm Pelican and Laurel listings under Elizabeth Alice. So my email is there as well.
Perfect. So I'm just going to plug next week real quick. Next week, I have Saratias from Ontier. He is a Scythian persona, and he does the most amazing metal work on his armor, and he's going to be talking about that. Lots of repousse, I can't say it, repousse. And chiseling and cut work and stuff like that. So that should be super interesting. He's one of my favorite people. And then on Wednesday, my sister and I are going to talk to Duchess Wren. We're going to do an interview with her. So you guys should all come hang out with us. And I so much appreciate this. Thank you so much. It's great to know what the basic tools are.
My other plug is going to be, since there is no Pennsic this year, watch at the time of Pennsic, because they will be doing virtual Pennsic University.
Oh, cool.
So you'll have opportunities to take classes with people who you're not going to run into in Ontier.
That sounds amazing. Well, thanks again. And thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.